Welcome in, everybody. Thank you for joining the morning meeting here on Two-Way. Honored, delighted, pleased, privileged, excited to be joined today by two of our favorite guest co-hosts. And when I say amongst our favorites, they're both in the top 10. Hogan Gidley, former chief deputy spokesperson under Sarah Huckabee Sanders at the White House. Go on YouTube, go on C-SPAN. You'll see Hogan regularly was at this podium briefing, and Hogan was the master of the favorite thing White House briefers say. I will not from this podium, blah, 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 blah. Never really understood that, but I always liked it.
That's not the favorite thing we say.
What's the favorite thing? I'll take the question. Let me circle
No,
back with you.
I'll have to refer you to the Department of fill in the blank for further.
Take that to the Department of Defense. They'll fill you in there. And then when you call the Department
of for this microphone, he's paying for this microphone.
Then they call the Department of Defense and they say, I'll refer you to the White House for anything on that. And I'm going to resist the urge to tell my favorite Ari Fleischer story. Maybe I'll tell it someday again. Told it 40 times on Two-Way. Kevin, welcome and thank you for being here. Kevin is a man of the South and the North.
I cover all bases.
Covers all bases. And name some of the Democratic politicians you've worked for, Kevin.
Ran Doug Gansler's campaign to be the Attorney General. Worked for Jake Auchincloss, a famous guy coming up in Massachusetts. Dems up and down the board.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, today's episode, we'll talk a lot about Minnesota as we have all week. And there's some new plot lines, some new story developments. There's some about the fabric of America. I see a reawakening of all these Silicon Valley woke employees who terrorized their bosses for many, many years and demanded they be woke. Disappeared after Donald Trump won re-election. And it's been a great imponderable to me. Where did those people go? They used to run Silicon Valley, and all of a sudden they just laid down their arms. Well, they're back over Minnesota, and we've seen some Silicon Valley bigwigs have to bow to the woke. An interesting development. That's one example. On the inside baseball, the finger pointing within the administration over who did what is the finger pointing is as extensive as a bunch of third graders after someone farted. How's that for a metaphor? But there's other stories we're going to cover today as well. Outside of Minnesota, the Fed, Wall Street Journal finally caught up to my reporting on the president's thinking about who to pick as Fed chair, and could be a war in Iran. The president on Truth Social this morning. Going to talk to you a little bit about AI, 2028, and Bari Weiss and CBS. All topics we hope to get to, but we'll see what the level of interest is on Minnesota between Kevin and Hogan, as well as you. So we'll see what happens. But I do want to try to get to some other stories today for the sake of important things are happening, ladies and gentlemen, out in the world. All right, let's go through the day book real quick, and then we'll get going with everybody. Melania Trump, we'll start with the First Lady, ringing the opening bell in 27 minutes downtown here, and we'll take that live probably. This, of course, pegged to her new film, documentary about her coming out on Friday, already screened at the White House, and screenings beginning in the coming days as well. The president himself, big event at the White House today on the Trump accounts. Second day in the row, the president, in theory, focusing on the economy. Then he's a private meeting with auto workers at 3, and then a policy meeting at 5. The vice president, in his role as the finance chair of the RNC, one of the great undercovered stories about 2028, is headed to Florida, where he'll do RNC events in Naples and Miami and raise, as they say, serious coin on behalf of the Republican Party and rub elbows with a lot of rich people. Scott Bessent's joining the president at that Trump account launch at 8:30 this morning. It's an all-day thing before the president speaks and after.
I'll be there, by the way.
Oh, you will? What are you going for? Just to hang out? Do you have a role?
Hey, man, it's my people.
Okay. Yeah. But I mean, are you an invited guest or are you a presenter? Or?
I'm an invited guest, but the speaker's going this afternoon, so I was kind of dealing with that, but then also to do some work with Scott and their team. I'm heading over there.
Yeah. So a lot of Hogan's clients, including the two most powerful people in America, the Treasury Secretary.
He's not a client.
He's a volunteer. You're a volunteer. And the speaker.
He's a South Carolinian, which of course Kevin can appreciate.
Yeah. Ray Charlestonian. Now, Hogan, are you getting one of those Trump accounts? Are you somehow getting one of those 1K checks?
I think I'm timed out.
Right? You're so boyish. You probably qualify. You're going to change your clothes before you go over, though, right?
Probably.
Okay, because
I have enough.
otherwise,
I think I built enough cred in the fashion space
yeah,
to just do what I
I hear
want.
you.
So,
Is Cowboy one of the Village People? Is that one of them? I don't think so. There's
No, there's an
construction
Indian.
Indian
There was an
construction
Indian
worker,
Navy guy,
construction
and then I don't know
Navy.
what the fourth one was.
I don't think there's Cowboy. Anyway, Marco
There is a
Rubio.
cowboy.
There is a cowboy. All right, Hogan, you can go as the Village People. Thank you. Marco Rubio is on Capitol Hill today. Hasn't testified before the Senate, maybe not even the House, but he hasn't been on the Hill in front of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in a minute. I think since the last spring, practically a year. So he's testifying, and he will face all manner of questions. Focus will be on Venezuela. His prepared remarks say that the president's prepared to again use military force if the Venezuelan government steps out of line with American wishes. But he'll get questions on Iran and all manner of things. So that'll be interesting to see. We'll see how he does. And of course, the Senate is still grappling with how to avoid a partial government shutdown. Senator Thune is still hoping to work out a side deal. Democrats are quite determined to have this be codified within the spending bill. And of course, if that happens, then there's worry that the House won't be back in time or ever be able to pass that bill. So we shall see. And of course, Jerome Powell. The Fed announces its rate decision at 2, widely expected. And I got to say, in the world of anticipating the Fed's decisions, the widely expected is almost always correct. There's almost never a surprise about how much of a cut or how much of an increase. Widely expected to have no change. Maybe that's because the Fed PR people call all the financial folks and say, here's what's going to happen. I don't know. But in any event, that's at 2:30 after the announcement at 2. The Fed chair has his first press conference since he made that video. Defiant video saying the president was prosecuting him for his policy views, and we'll see what kind of mood the Fed chair is in today. This is the Wall Street Journal reports the president's unhappy with his 4 finalists, and I say finalists because I still think it's going to be somebody else. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk about that. All right, a quick word from a sponsor, and then we're going to dig into Minnesota. And our first sponsor is our friends at Cozy Earth. Someone came on the program last night and said they bought the Cozy Earth sheets, and they're like, Mark, these are the best sheets I've ever had. And of course, my reaction to that was buy the pants and take advantage of the fresh offer from our friends at Cozy Earth, available to you, viewers and listeners of this program. The 2-for-1 deal. Buy one, get one free. The bamboo pajama set available now, was sold out, available again. Act quickly before Kevin buys them all. Kevin's kind of a bag, got a pajama fetish.
I won't pan down the screen, but
yeah. Anyway, buy one, get one free.
Professional on top right here.
Yeah, go to cozyearth.com. Promo code is 2WMMBOGO, 2WMMBOGO, to get the opportunity maybe for Valentine's Day. Act now. Don't wait and buy some box of chocolates at the CVS pharmacy. Buy the pajamas right now. Go to cozyearth.com. Valentine's Day offer. Buy one, get one free. Cozyearth.com. Promo code 2WMMBOGO for the nicest pajamas you ever did buy for yourself or a loved one or for Hogan. Okay, let's talk about Mr. Homan. We already showed you the president's schedule. Homan, we don't need to show any elements for this. Hogan, he's been there a day. I think he's still there. As far as we know, he's still there. He said he had good meetings with the mayor and the governor. They're trying to work things out. How bullish are you on Homan succeeding in de-escalating, which is a big part of his mission?
Is there something between bull and bear?
Maybe Minotaur. I don't know. I hear you.
Minotaurish. How's that?
Yeah.
Listen, I was texting with Tom Homan while he was on his way up there. I think that was the timing was right about some things, and I really like Tom. Always have. I always found him to be someone who had a ton of institutional knowledge, but also, a pragmatic player in Washington D.C. Having worked for both Republican and Democrat presidents, famously Barack Obama gave him an award for all the deportations he did under his administration. George Bush. All these folks who are doing these deportations, no riots to speak of on their watch, of course. So Tom going up there, having that knowledge, I think the breadth and depth of what he's been able to do in a career will be very helpful to the situation. What I was sad to see was, and I think we were talking about one of these elements before, was Tom is up there and basically said, look, I met with the mayor, I met with Waltz, we need to work together. And kind of brought that down. We're gonna follow the law. We're gonna enforce law. We need to work together. And then Jacob Frey comes out and says, "We're not doing that. We're not following the law." again, I think both Republicans and Democrats have a tendency to take information and think it gives them carte blanche to swing way too far to one side or the other. And I think the mayor may have just done that because it's obvious the Trump administration, led now by Kristi Noem and Tom Homan on the ground there, are going to try and bring this to a close and have something reasonable and rational happen. For the mayor to stand up against that, I think is really quite foolish.
Okay. So I appreciate all that, and of course, great to hear about your comms with him. Do you think he'll succeed? I know you're currently not bullish on the mayor's participation, but do you think by the time Tom Homan leaves Minnesota, I don't know how long he's going to stay, that there'll be a working relationship between state, county, local, city?
To some degree, yeah.
To some degree. Okay, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, I think to Hogan's point, no one really knew of Tom Homan as a bureaucrat, right? And he spent his career working in immigration and border for the last 25 years, 30 years. Only recently has he become a well-known name, obviously being more on a fixture on Fox News. So he comes at it from a bureaucrat government efficiency standpoint. I think he's the right person to do it. I think you've already seen, it's being characterized as a concession of the president pulling back Bovino and drawing down some of the forces there. But to Hogan's point, I hope cooler heads will prevail. And, you're getting some concessions from this administration. There's obviously, it's playing out in real time on the Hill in the backdrop of this funding debate, and meet the administration where they're at, right? And let's not fan the flames. And I think it does not serve the people of Minnesota well to see the mayor out there. We saw last night, Ilhan Omar, one of the congresswomen from Minneapolis, was involved in some altercation, some attack from a constituent. And that also doesn't, help tamp down relations on the ground, because again, to Hogan's point, we all retreat to our sides when we actually need cooler heads to prevail. As Mark has said from the beginning, take one breath and take 4 more breaths to make it happen.
Can I say something real quick about that attack on Ilhan Omar, whatever liquid that was? In my naivete, probably in 2012, let's say, somewhere in there, when I was doing comms for Rick Santorum, and he was kind of gaining speed around Iowa. I remember someone coming up and threw what was a glitter bomb at the time, threw glitter all over him in protest of his stance on gay marriage, in essence.
They never caught me, Hogan. They never caught me. Glitter bombs are dangerous.
They tried.
We're in right at the back of the pizza range.
We're outside the statute of limitations on
that. They tackled the guy, like with force, obviously, handcuffed him, took him away. And I went over to the guy and said, listen, is that really like a necessary thing? Like he just threw glitter. And they said, that's the problem. You don't know what's in that cup. It could be acid. It could be any type of powder that's illegal that would cause some type of, it could be a drug. It could be whatever it is. And so when I saw that, I thought, see, that is not a good place, because you never know what's in that. So when people say, why is there so much force done with that cup? That's why, because you don't know what's in that cup, and you don't give them a chance to do it twice, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does, and glad she's okay. Hope we get to the bottom of the motive of that person, and really unhelpful, to say the least, for the president to mock it. The president should not have mocked it. Hogan, was you agreeing with me that the president should not have mocked her being attacked?
I didn't see that mock. I didn't see that.
Well, who are you? Who are you, Mike Johnson? I'll tell you what he said. He said, "I haven't seen." The president said, Mike Johnson. Every time you ask him about something the president did that was outrageous, Mike Johnson said, "Well, I didn't see it." Here's what he did.
Because he's working.
What he did. Okay, but then the reporters tell him what happened.
He was commenting on everything the president did. You'd be like, does this guy ever work? Isn't he the speaker?
All right,
pass some bills.
I'm moving on. Here's what the president said on Truth Social this morning. He had a triptych of Truth Social posts. Here's what he said about Mayor Frey, 122. No, not this one. This is about the massive armada. Here we go. Surprisingly, Mayor Jacob Frey just stated that, quote, Minneapolis does not and will not enforce federal immigration laws. This is after having had a very good conversation with him, meaning Homan. Could somebody in his inner sanctum please explain that this statement is a very serious violation of the law and that he's playing with fire? I'm no Henry Kissinger, but I could go up there or Richard Holbrooke, but I could go up there and negotiate this deal in about 10 minutes. So I'm presuming Tom Homan could as well. All right. Lots
or
of
Morton Halperin. Or a Morton
Halperin, sure. Lots of infighting within the administration. And we're seeing some uncharacteristic things that we haven't seen. There's been a lot of behind-the-scenes sniping within between the White House and Homeland Security and the different parts of Homeland Security. Our friend Eric Erickson, a regular guest host here, very good summary here from his Substack. Stephen Miller now admits he gave the information to Kristi Noem that caused her to call Preddy a domestic terrorist. But everyone now claims that information came from the Border Patrol on the ground, meaning Bovino. Likewise, Miller claims the Border Patrol failed to follow protocol, with some agents arresting illegals and others holding back the protesters. So Stephen Miller went on the record with a number of news organizations. Axios has words from Secretary Noem via someone else saying what I reported yesterday here and on the Daily Mail, that Miller and others at the White House approved everything that she said in the immediate aftermath of the shooting. So you've got Noem pointing fingers at Miller, Miller pointing fingers at DHS, and saying what is this is, I think, lost in the inside baseball. Miller, if this is the protocol, it should be. We've all said if the local police are not going to protect these operations and keep people back, then DHS has to do it itself, and they should, because it's not fair to the officers to be trying to do their job and protect themselves and do crowd control. So I believe, based on my reporting, that the secretary is not going anywhere. Senator Murkowski and Senator Fetterman and Senator Tillis all have called for the secretary to go. Other Republicans, senators, have said negative things, but you'll recall during the most of the Biden administration, Republican senators called for the Secretary of Homeland Security to go, and he never went. So one-word answer, will Kristi Noem be the Secretary of Homeland Security on June 1st? Kevin?
Yes.
Hogan?
Yes.
Yes, okay, we're all in agreement there. What is Stephen doing, Hogan? Why is Stephen why is he saying publicly, second guessing the conduct of folks there? Is it I mean, I can't even theorize. Why is he on the record saying Homeland Security didn't do what they were supposed to do and we're looking into it?
I don't know. I mean, look, as everyone here knows, Stephen's one of my friends. I was in his wedding, for heaven's sakes, but
Yeah.
I don't know any of the ins and outs of this. I've not been tracking the palace intrigue. I'm trying to be focused more on the policy and how they fix things in Minneapolis, which I think they are as well. Inevitably, along the way, there'll be some deviations in messaging from different people. When you're allowing some people to go out there and have those conversations and go on camera, that inevitably is part of it. The fact that you can hopefully minimize that in the future allows you to kind of drill down on what's at stake and win PR battles and messaging wars in a better way. But I mean, I don't think people care about it too much. I think they're worried about what's going on the ground there.
All right, we could talk about this. We're going to move on because I was just
going to say one extraordinary thing, though, Mark, that you just mentioned is that quote that Kristi Noem authorized to be released.
Yeah.
Everything I've done, it's been at the direction of the president and Stephen.
Yes.
Right? She's a cabinet secretary. He's a deputy White House chief of staff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an extraordinary statement.
It is.
She's taking orders from a deputy chief of staff.
Well, yes, and it's factually true according to my reporting. There are all these articles about how powerful Stephen is. They understate the case. Stephen is immensely powerful on a range of issues, including foreign policy issues. All right, again, we could stay on this.
That Guardian piece that you wrote was so interesting in that Oval Office interaction. Was fascinating, Mark, to your point.
Thank you, sir. Daily Mail, by the way, but thank you.
Daily Mail, sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. Raise your hands if you want to talk about this topic when we get to you, community. Certainly we can. But let's talk about some other stuff. Well, one more on this is the shutdown. There still could be a partial government shutdown. There's no one, you could talk to every source on the Hill, including the leadership in the White House. Nobody knows how this is going to end. It's still very complex. But Democrats are as fired up, remain as fired up as they've been about any issue. And yet there's a debate within the Democratic Party, which is, do we want to be talking about this into the midterms, or do we want to be talking about affordability with consumer confidence at an extraordinary low? Here is the new senator from Maryland, Senator Alsobrooks, on Morning Joe, and watch this very clever comms messaging where she fuses the affordability issue with the immigration issue by turning immigration into the other A word, accountability.
that these Republicans have already superfunded DHS at a tune of $75 billion. And what we know now is that our country is not only in a moral crisis, but we have a double crisis going. There is an affordability crisis that is happening, but we're also seeing a horrific accountability crisis that is happening at the same time. So no, not another penny for this murderous organization to move forward. And what we have seen is that Americans are asking the question, why can't I afford health care? And if you're wondering that, we only have to turn on the television now to see how our dollars have been misappropriated to fund this organization that is ill-trained and that is terrorizing and killing Americans on American streets. It's horrific what we've seen. And so not another penny, but you're right, we should level set. $75 billion already has been appropriated and has been passed by these Republicans in that big, beautiful bill. And so, but why should we put another penny toward this organization?
Kevin, how do you rate that messaging? Is that something Democrats can and should sustain? That there's some connection between affordability and the conduct of DHS?
I mean, it's an important pivot, right? Oh, we're going to win on the economy in the midterm. So, you know, it's an interesting element that Senator Alsterbrooks did there. I disagree wholeheartedly with her language in terms of a murderous regime and things like that. I don't think that is going to serve our interest well as Democrats and as a party and frankly, as Americans.
All right. The Fed.
Swinging too far, as I just said. Murderous organization, she said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I knew what you would say on it, so I didn't even bother.
Well,
yeah.
by the
we're
way,
in agreement on that.
I agree. Also, did you notice her pivot to healthcare is not affordable? I was told that Obamacare was going to fix all of this. So that's fascinating. We're still having a conversation about healthcare, but I digress. Go to the next topic.
I hear you. All right, the Fed. Wall Street Journal story today, as I said before, just because I can't help but take credit, says what's been true for a long time. The president wants someone who will do who he'll be confident will do his bidding on interest rates. And Scott Bessent wants someone who is clearly qualified for the job and will have credibility in the country and around the world. The four people, none of the people on the current list of the so-called four finalists, the two Kevins, Mr. Ryder, or what's that fourth guy's name at the Fed? I can never remember that guy's name. What's the guy's name?
Kevins and
it's the guy who's at the Fed. Whatever. I don't think he's going to be picked. Anyway, none of them meet, and the Journal story makes that clear. Right now, if you were looking at the financial community on X, the person you'd say was the front runner would be Rick Ryder. Here's a profile of him in Fortune. Says he sleeps a maximum of 4 hours a night. Colleagues say you can expect emails from him as early as 3 a.m. or as late as 11 p.m. No matter how early they came to the office, Ryder was always there earlier, and no matter how late they stayed, he was still there. Trump loves that. Trump loves somebody who's working his hours. But Team Warsh is going hard after him with opposition research, pointing out again and again. He gave money to Nikki Haley and Pete Buttigieg. You think Donald Trump is going to trust the person to be Fed chair, someone who gave money to those two? I don't know. I doubt it. And on the other hand, he lived in this Admiral's Cove. Do you guys know Admiral's Cove? You know what that is? Fancy community. Kevin, you and I don't know what it is because it's fancy, but Hogan does. It's a fancy gated community in South Florida where Ryder's had a home and where Don Jr.'s had a home. And I'm told they're pretty friendly. And some sources are telling me Don Jr. is pushing for him. So who will it be? Will it be one of those four, or will it be Halperin's long touted door number 5? Someone not on the list of 4. Hogan.
I don't know, man. You ask this question like every time I'm here.
I do.
I tell you what I'm gonna do.
There's great interest in who the Fed chair is going to be.
I agree. Yeah. I'm gonna take you though, in your door number 5. I will say one thing about this, having been a Sherpa for a lot of these secretaries and helping them get through the Senate confirmation process, the jockeying on the front end by people who say they don't want the job, then doing some opposition research and leaking bad stories about other names being floated for the same job is always fascinating to me. And this is a great example of that.
And Trump doesn't like that either, by the way, typically, unless Loomer brings it in. But I mean, is President Trump going to pick someone to be Fed chair who gave money to Nikki Haley? No, I don't think so.
I don't. At the end of the day, I don't know.
All right, Kevin, you got a feeling of who it's going to be?
I mean, I think it's door number 5. I'm putting it January 28th, right? The appointment comes up in June or May or June, I think, is when Jerome Powell's term is up. I'm saying, Scott Bessent has said no quite a bit. I think he may Karl Rove this entire situation and come in.
You
I'm
mean
just
Dick
putting it
Cheney?
out there.
You mean Dick Cheney?
Dick
No,
Cheney, yeah.
He doesn't want it. I don't think he's
I don't
bond
know.
or number
I don't
five.
think he wants
All
to.
right.
5 months from
All
now
right.
to be Fed chair, and
Okay.
your legacy extends well beyond Trump.
I want to move on
What you
from
don't
this
want to
topic.
do is take a position that demands you say no to the president quite regularly.
Yeah.
That's a position that you'd have to say no to.
Switch over to Morning Joe.
Say no during it.
Josh Shapiro is on. Let's flip over to that. We got Melania in 5 minutes too, but I just want to hear what he's saying.
Has been sounding off and being heard. It is clear that the President of the United States, while he hasn't changed the core mission or his directive to those federal agents, he is obviously hearing from the people. The people need to continue to peacefully protest and be heard. The mission's compromised, and it needs to end immediately.
So, Governor, the Puck News obtained a private polling which suggested that your rhetoric, your messaging about ICE actually tops on Democrats in the last few days.
We'll monitor
exactly
it. I just want to read you before we move on from the Fed. I mentioned Admiral's Cove, right? I hadn't heard of it till a few weeks ago, or a few days ago, rather. This is the most ridiculous text I've gotten, at least today. Do you have a place in Admiral's Cove? Someone told me there's a picture of you in the resident directory. Let me just go on the record. Not only do I not own a place in Admiral's Cove, I've never been there. I couldn't find it on a map. But thank you for asking. And if you've got a picture of me in the directory, please send it my way. All right. So when I used to cover presidential campaigns day to day, if the candidate gave his or her stump speech, same every time with message discipline, the political reporters would all be bored. They'd say to their editors, "There's no news today," so you get no coverage, right? But if you deviated from your stump speech, they'd say, "Oh, you've got no message discipline." That's true of every candidate. Donald Trump has a special place in this dynamic because if he goes to Iowa and he stays largely on message, which he did yesterday. Now, there were digressions, but he mostly talked about affordability, talked about his record on the economy, talked about other things he wants to do. And then towards the end of the speech, he did other stuff. It gets almost no coverage. Fox cut away from it. Fox was covering it live. Now, if he had spent the whole speech attacking the squad and talking about Iran, they probably would have stayed with it. And he probably would have gotten more coverage in the news today. So this is kind of quandary. And at the same time, if you look at all the data, the president is not winning the messaging wars. They have this big event at the White House today to talk about the economy and these Trump accounts. But look at the new number on consumer confidence. This is kind of startling for those in the White House who think everything's going to be fine. This is number 113, please. Lowest level of consumer confidence in, what is it, a decade? I think it's a decade, lower than during COVID.
2014, I think.
Yeah, that's like a decade lower. The 2014, lower than during COVID. America's confidence in the U.S. economy falls sharply in January to the lowest level since 2014. I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it's hard to understand why people would think that. We can theorize all we want. Is it AI? I don't know what it is. But it's grim for the president and for Scott Bessent. So here's Scott Bessent, Mr. Sunny. Mr. Optimistic, Mr. It's all going to work out. We've set the table, and 2026 is the year of the buffet. Here he is talking to Fox News about his view of turning things around on consumer confidence. This is number 119, please.
But consumer confidence is pretty low right now. Do you think we're going to see those numbers turn around when people start getting those refund checks back?
Well, I think we are. And in my private investment career for 35 years, I've always learned to be skeptical of the numbers when, so that's a sentiment survey. What people are actually doing is more important. So we're actually seeing consumer spending is quite strong, job growth is quite strong. So I think we will see the survey numbers start picking up. I think 2026 is going to be a great year. I'm also the IRS commissioner, so I can see that we're probably going to have between another 100, 150 billion of refunds, a lot of that going to working families based on the president's signature policies: no tax and tips, no tax and overtime, no tax and Social Security, deductibility of auto loans for American-made cars. So it's going to be a big refund season. Working Americans will reset their withholding. And I tell everyone, do have a look at your withholdings. So that will give you a weekly fill up or monthly fill up in wages. So I think we are containing costs, but more importantly, we're going to see real wage gains for working Americans.
Okay.
Now, one more element, 112, please. The FT says that the, you can put up Melania, we'll just watch it. I don't know that we need the audio, just leave the picture up for those on watching, listening on the podcast. There's Melania Trump on the familiar location with great branding behind her for her film. Do they always have that branding behind the people when they do ring the bell?
Yeah.
They do?
With corporate, corporate.
Corporate logo is always back there.
Yeah.
All right, anyway, she's ringing the bell, opening bell down on Wall Street there. FT says, I guess we can't put this up. I'll just read it. Investors are betting on a hot U.S. economy headed into the midterm elections. There it is. Investors bet on a hot U.S. economy heading into elections. Stocks rise with inflation expectations as fund managers anticipate more stimulus despite strong growth. Now, that's separate from what the Fed's going to do. And of course, the dollar is very weak now. The president yesterday did not talk up the dollar, quite the contrary, unlike what most presidents do. That's not messaging for the general public who doesn't much care about the value of the dollar, but in the financial world, that's a big deal. So, Hogan, you first. There's these two elements, right? There's the question of how the president messages, and if he goes out and talks about the economy, the press doesn't cover it, so it's a tree falling in the woods. And at the same time, the White House can't look at that January consumer confidence number and be pleased that they're on track. So I put all that in the blender, and what do you get?
Well, real quickly, having done comms for Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee, I would always find it fascinating at the back of the room, as you said, when we do joint appearances with other candidates. Romney, for example, I mean, the reporters just sitting there bored out of their minds, just like typing away, talking to each other. And then when like Huckabee would get up and speak, or Rick Santorum, they look like cracked out, meth heads, because they never knew what was coming. They were always worried and harried trying to get through it because they never stayed on message. It was always a different speech at the time. But as far as this is concerned, listen, I think you got to be careful here because you don't want to message something that's antithetical to what the people are feeling. I think this is the problem that Kamala Harris had and the problem that Joe Biden had. The difference, though, was Kamala was telling you the border was closed when it wasn't, that the economy was better and it wasn't. Crime was down, but it wasn't. They were flat out lying. The difference here is Trump has some pretty good numbers in certain areas, but you have to at least let the people in that you understand what they feel is still difficult, and that while they've made strides, you need to let them know, here's where we were, here's where we are now, and the trajectory is only going up if you allow us to keep hold of the House, the Senate, and the White House. It has to kind of be a combination of those messages, but the Bill Clinton ubiquitous, I feel your pain, should be part of that, I believe, as well, moving forward in talking about these issues, because the American people are struggling for sure.
Kevin, we've seen
Hogan, can I ask you though? Do you think that last part about Bill Clinton? I feel your pain. The president is so wired to just be a cheerleader, right? And to accept that nothing is wrong. People aren't. And he gave that speech at the Kennedy Center where he said, I don't understand why the American people aren't feeling this way. Do you think he has the capacity, having worked for him, to acknowledge that kind of pain that some people are feeling, or is he just going to be that cheerleader that is pretty effective, right, and has been effective in the past?
Well, first of all, it's the Trump Kennedy Center, so let's make that very clear. Second is, yes, but he doesn't do it in the typical way a politician does it. Instead of saying, I feel your pain, or having Mike Huckabee get off a stool famously and look at a lady whose children had cancer and say, I can't imagine how I would feel if my child had cancer, and get in there like that. He's more of a, look, it was rough, but he would say something like, Joe Biden ruined your lives. He ruined the economy for 4 years. I know it's tough, but I'm fixing it. We have prices down. We have this. He'll go into his mantra, but he'll remind you who caused that pain, as opposed to him saying, hey, I know it's rough out there. I get it, right? He's not going to say it, I think, in those ways. Yeah. Both effective, and I think both work.
Kevin, let me ask you. So Bessent, publicly and privately, is betting on the economy roaring by the spring, and being able to run on promises made, promises kept. That's not impossible, and there's some economic data that suggests maybe even more likely than not. So if you're sitting around with Chuck Schumer and Ken Farmer, like, what do you do as the Democrats in case that happens? Just continue to cherry pick the negative stuff? I mean, in other words,
Yeah,
if your whole thing's on the economy's weak, and then the economy turns out not to be weak, how are Democrats preparing for that possibility?
Yeah, it's a good question. Weak to who, right? I mean, it's still going to be the case that 40% of Americans, even if the economy is booming, still can't afford a $500 medical bill, bill with their
Unexpected
kids
bill.
and stuff like that, right? So that gap is still real. It is the issue of what middle class folks are feeling, especially suburban voters, right? That are not making a fortune. They're around 100K a year. How are they feeling? And again, everything is going to be locked in come the spring to predict what people will, how people will vote in November. There's a very short amount of time for this administration to change course in people's mentality. Because again, once you hit June, July, August, that mentality is going to be what dictates where people are in November.
Well said. All right, we're going to skip around a little bit. I want to get to your questions in just a moment. Raise your hand if you'd like to get in on the conversation. Two other Truth Social posts from the president this morning, both awesomely interesting. First on Iran, the Saudis say the U.S. can't use the airspace, but that doesn't matter. If the president wants to strike, they'll figure out a way to not use Saudi airspace to hit Iran. Here's the president's post. A massive armada, meaning American armada, is headed to Iran. It's moving quickly with great power, enthusiasm, and purpose. It is a larger fleet headed by the great aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln than that set to Venezuela. Like with Venezuela, it is ready, willing, and able to rapidly fulfill its mission with speed and violence, if necessary. Hopefully, Iran will quickly come to the table and negotiate a fair and equitable deal, no nuclear weapons, one that is good for all parties. Time is running out. It is truly of the essence. As I told Iran once before, make a deal. They didn't, and there was Operation Midnight Hammer, a major destruction of Iran. The next attack will be far worse. Don't make that happen again. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. Kevin, we had thought that if there was going to be a strike, it was going to be about the protests and supporting the protests. Now, all of a sudden, we're back to a strike to degrade, destroy their nuclear capability. So what's your sense of what's going on here in terms of the strategy and the likelihood that there'll be a military act?
I still think there's going to be a military action here. Reports are the regime is at the weakest point ever in the history since 1979. I think, this was cover to get the Lincoln. There's another carrier strike group coming over from the Atlantic into the Med. And that the president will take action, especially now with the reports that, upwards of 30,000 Iranians have been slaughtered thus far. I think when he's out there saying help is on the way, and that encourages Iranians to take to the streets, and then to see that brutal regime crackdown, I think the president is going to take action there, and should take action there. Again, the regime is at the weakest point, and this is the way to do it. And I think part of this is cover, and the president's going to do the right thing here.
Hogan, thoughts on that?
Yeah, for the life of me, though, I can't figure out why these foreign leaders continue to bet on Trump not doing something when he's clearly said he's going to do something and then has done it on multiple occasions, multiple missions, backing up what he is claimed he would do. The red lines that other administrations have drawn and let pass, and no one did anything. It wasn't a big deal. I get it. But they have kind of a taste of this from the first 4 years of his first administration. Now, this administration, he's just as active doing strategic surgical strikes, making sure that what he said would happen does happen. And if there's one thing he hates, and there are a lot of them, if there's one thing he hates, he doesn't like death and destruction. He doesn't like that stuff on his watch. And if he's seeing
innocent death and destruction,
innocent death, yes. And if he sees this happening, he will be, and the reports are true, as Kevin said, upwards of 30,000 people being slaughtered in the streets. He said, don't do that. He said, you better not do that. He's laid down some lines here.
But then, Hogan, why I'm sorry to interrupt, but why is he switching to talking about the nuclear program?
Yeah, again, I don't know that it's necessarily, I get what you're trying to do and kind of differentiate, but understand it's still the Iranian regime and what they're doing. And they understand power. They understand toughness. And if Trump says, all right, I see what you're doing to your people, watch me destroy your nuclear capabilities more, focus on you in that way even more, it's still part and parcel with the entire regime itself.
Understood. All right.
And those are hardened military targets, which are easier to do than a regime change.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that the Iranian regime is is taking the worst playbook out of the Maduro thing with taunting him, right? You saw this giant
Yes.
billboard go up about
Yeah.
death and destruction and calling out the president directly, especially referencing Butler and the assassination attempt.
Yeah.
I mean, that really gets the president going.
They did not get the memo.
So some would argue that Donald Trump wouldn't even have run for president had it not been a joke told by Barack Obama at correspondence dinner about
never believe.
He doesn't like the mocking.
Never believe that's why he ran.
I don't.
All right.
I don't either.
We're gonna throw in some topics off the sled, but I want to get to one more. The President of the United States, 3 Truth Social posts this morning. We showed right before we went on the air. We showed you 2. Minnesota couldn't be a more serious matter: life and death, national interest. Second, Iran, international life and death. But one more. On a topic the president posts on a regular basis, and it is my strongest area of agreement with Donald Trump. The NFL kickoff rule is ridiculous. And he fused it up with the second most ridiculous thing happened in football in the last 100 years. Bill Belichick denied first ballot access to the Hall of Fame. Here's the post from the president. And again, this is written in prose, but ladies and gentlemen, this is poetry. It is the same mindset that gave pro football the new and unwatchable sissy kickoff rule that made it possible for Bill Belichick to not be elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Both are ridiculous and should be overturned. Gentlemen, can we agree on both those points?
Yes.
Okay. All right then.
And again, you saw the Belichick photo with all the rings on his fingers. I don't think he has any fingers free.
I like what he said. He said, "I won 6 Super Bowls. What do they want?" And then one of his supporters, I forget who it was, said no coach should be a first ballot honoree if he is not. Now, Deflategate. Kids shouldn't be taught to cheat. I agree with that. But come on now. We know Tom did that. All right. Quick word from a sponsor.
I think Stephen Miller did that.
Quick word, or Katie. Quick word from a sponsor, and then to your question. So please raise your hand. We'd love some new people. If you've never raised your hand before, please do. 25% discount now for better sleep. 25% off better sleep. More relaxation. Better feeling. Dealing with pain after injury. I stubbed my toe yesterday. I could use some pain relief right now. Not going to kid you. 25% off everything on the website, cbdistillery.com. Over 2 million happy customers for cbdistillery.com. Their products are natural and 100% money back guaranteed. Party tested, free from artificial dyes and fillers. Right now, save 25% off all the products on cbdistillery.com. If you're a viewer of this program, a listener to this program, if you know how to spell Gidley, any of those things, you're available for 25% discount. Just use the promo code 2WMM for 25% off. Everything on the site. Go to cbdistillery.com, promo code 2WMM. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for your participatory moment. Deborah, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Kevin and for Hogan, and thank you for being part of Two-Way.
Hi, gentlemen. I'm in New York City, and I've been trying to track the evolution of the Democrats' view on immigration. I don't know if some of you have seen, I'll recap a little bit, some clips of Obama going around where his views are quite different. Him talking about, even though it's a compassionate thing to be concerned about the immigrants, if you do this without any repercussions, we could have a surge. We're ignoring people already waiting in line. We're a nation of rights and obligations to control the borders. No matter how decent the people are, no matter their reasons, they broke the law. This was in 2010. In 2013, also when asked if they should freeze deportations, he said, you can't break the laws. I can't do this legally. So I've been trying to understand, where did the shift happen with the Democrats and why? I do wonder if it's both top down and bottom up, like were there electoral strategies for shifting on this, and then bottom up with, I think, the rise of the social justice warrior, this sort of view around privilege and people sort of in society feeling more concerned, oh my gosh, I have privilege. And also see religious bodies. I see so many churches, the sanctuary movement, lots of even synagogues putting out statements about how we need to treat immigrants, that it seems also from the religious world, there are some pressures on treating immigrants in a different way. So what do you guys think has sort of caused this shift in the Democrat view on immigration?
Great question, Deborah. Very good. Kevin first.
Yeah, Deborah, it's a great question. I think, you relay those Obama quotes very similar to what George W. Bush was saying, right? Compassion, right? And a need for bipartisan compromise when it comes to immigration. We had a deal in 2012, 2014 through the Senate, obviously didn't get any play in the House. that was very in line, and the parties were mostly in line on that element. I think what you've seen is my party, to some degree, reacting to the rhetoric from Donald Trump coming down the escalator, right, where he talked specifically about immigrants and things like that. And that's almost radicalized elements within my party that see this just as a black and white issue. And not a space where we can get compromise when it comes to DACA, where we can get compromise in terms of actually enforcing the law. And I think that's what's fueled the difference in rhetoric and some of the positions my party has taken. I'm still in that Obama mold in terms of, we're a nation of laws. I think the president's done a really good job when it's come to border security, and you're seeing that reflected in the polls, even with Democrats lining up to some degree behind him. So again, I think that breakdown has been, I think, as a direct result of President Trump's rhetoric coming down the escalator and launching that campaign on that particular issue.
Hogan Gidley is known as two things: modern day de Tocqueville, modern day David Cassidy. Hogan.
Thank you, Deborah, for the question. I think there are a lot of factors here, and I don't think one of them kind of has dictated this shift. I think language plays a big part in it. I mean, the left has kind of co-opted that to talk about undocumented people, undocumented migrants, when they're not. If you leave the house today and forget your license at home, you're undocumented, but you're a citizen of this country. They've kind of made language much softer on the issue, as opposed to exactly what they are: illegal aliens as defined by law. I think there's a big problem, too, with past administrations, both Republican and Democrat. I mean, Reagan, for heaven's sake, said, we'll close the border. I'll give you amnesty as a trade. He never closed the border. He just allowed the amnesty. That kind of stuff begins roiling, too, I believe, at the local level, as well as you begin to see people who are poor whites, poor blacks, poor Hispanics, who are citizens of this country, who are supposed to be getting government assistance, regardless of how you feel about entitlement programs. They're supposed to get these government assistances, but they're going to people who don't have a right to be in this country at all for free. I think there's a lot of backlash and a lot of resentment in those corridors as well. And then someone like Obama, for example, telling us for years he wasn't a king. He couldn't wave a magic wand and just allow DACA. That's not how it works. And then turned around and did it. These types of things over immigration have gone on for a long time. And I would argue, too, in the last several campaigns, I remember talking to candidates about this. Comprehensive immigration reform became a complete negative somewhere around mid-George W. Bush time, somewhere in there, because then it became whoa, that's code for just letting everybody in the country illegally and amnesty. So a lot of factors there that I think have really ratcheted up the tensions. And last, I would say the exclamation point on this too, that really kind of turned the tide on this argument, was when Republican governors said, wait a minute, blue states, wait a minute, sanctuary cities, you say you want these people, but you're not affected by them, like Texas, like Florida, like other border states. You want them, you got them. And they sent them there, and they got to see the fallout from that. That also, I think, changed some of the heated arguments in and around immigration.
Deborah, thank you. Really great question. Grateful to you. Colin, welcome in. Tell folks that don't know where you are, what's on your mind for Hogan and for Kevin. And thank you for being here.
Oh, hey. Can I say something real quick?
Yes, sir.
Colin, speaking of Lindsey Graham, for example, I got kicked off the Christmas card list because from the North Lawn, I reminded people when he opposed the president on immigration, I said that we don't call him Grahamnesty for nothing, that he was booed off the stage in South Carolina when he supported George W. Bush's position on amnesty. And they called me and said, you're off the Christmas card list. I said, fine. Now, Lindsey Graham's at the border like every other week saying close the border. So these things always shift and move around. Anyway.
Marco Rubio, same thing. Same journey. Colin, welcome in. Tell folks that don't know where you are, what's on your mind. Thank you for being part of Two Way.
I'm calling from Oxford, Mississippi. Just enjoying our snow days up here.
Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy. But so my question is about the whole immigration thing and the kind of settlement that Trump seems to have come with Waltz. It kind of made me wondering, is that agreement where they'll pull back some of the federal forces and Waltz has agreed to allow the local law enforcement, state level forces cooperate with ICE? Isn't that what Trump kind of just wanted to begin with? So isn't this a win, just a return to the status quo for the administration? I'm really not understanding.
Yeah, it's a great question. There. No, I think you have it right, and I can understand why even having it right would be confusing to you. It'll depend on exactly devil in the details, right? How this actually goes. If what happens is the people who they want to deport can be safely and smoothly deported, it will be what the president wanted. But we're going to have to see exactly how smooth it is, and we're going to have to see also who they want to deport, because as we've discussed on this platform many times, there's not a full debate led by the administration on who should be deported. I hear people say it's outrageous to go to the Target parking lot or the Home Depot parking lot, and try to deport those people. I hear people say that's un-American, and I hear people say those people are here illegally, and they're doing what Jesse James did with the banks. They're going there because they've good reason to believe that a lot of those people are in the country illegally, and that's why they're seeking employment that way. So that's I think where the rub's going to be is who do they continue to try to deport, and initially, how cooperative are the local folks?
And that makes me wonder, like, what did people think he meant by all the signs at his rallies in the RNC that said mass deportations now? He wasn't exactly hiding the ball.
Well, he wasn't, except then after he got elected, they started to say, we're starting with the bad hombres. We're starting with the worst of the worst. Well, that's how they're trying to align it. Say starting with, but I don't know what the president's answer would be, and I don't know what his actual position is, because about after we finished with the bad hombres. Now what are we doing? Because his friends in ag and hospitality don't want anybody touched. They want their workers. And a lot of his friends say, well, what about the woman who sews my pants? What about the woman who picks my kids up from school? There's a lot of ambiguity built into starting with. Hogan, Kevin, what did I say that needs fixing?
So much. No, I'm kidding. Colin, first of all, everybody okay? Your family in Oxford? I know that they've been devastated by that ice storm.
Oh yeah, thankfully, my family's home in Florida, enjoying the warm Florida sun. But yeah,
They're
luckily,
the lucky
I still
ones.
have power,
Florida's the
so very blessed.
only bright spot right now.
Yeah. Look, I think understand. There was a tweet put out by Tim Walz who basically said, Trump's lying, the government's lying. We are cooperating 100%. We don't have a single person in custody we haven't turned over at our state prisons, et cetera, et cetera. True. However, that's not the problem. In Minnesota, if you're in the state system, for example, you have started to serve your time, yes, then you're turned over to ICE. What the problem is that the city and county level, where they are just releasing these criminals, slapping them with a fine, plea bargaining. That's why you see folks with like a rap sheet a mile long, because they're not detained and turned over to ICE. They're released back into the communities. That's one of the biggest issues. So the devil in the details, as Mark said, if the administration came out and said, listen, we are going to enforce federal law, you guys need to come up with a way to make that happen, whether that be through your local law enforcement, whether it be us being able to go into your city and county jails and take them. Because when you don't do that, when you don't hold them for ICE and you release them into communities, you have to go, as Mark pointed out, Jesse James, when he was asked about why he robbed banks, he said that's where the money is. If the illegal aliens are in communities, you have to go into the communities to take them out. They had them in jails. This is working all over the country, but for some reason, Minnesota can't quite figure it out. And I would argue it's on purpose, by design, not by accident. But anyway, that to me, so when you say return to the status quo, I don't think the status quo is sustainable for the administration and quite frankly for the people of Minnesota, whether they know it or not. So there will be some wrangling going on with what they can do, what they're able to do, working with local law enforcement. And if you can put it back on them and say, all right, we're going to enforce the laws that are passed. You have to figure out a way to make this happen on your end. Then it becomes Governor Walz's and Mayor Frey's problem. If they're going to reject that, then we've got a whole different PR battle to fight.
Kevin?
I'll only tack onto that what Hogan said. I think one of the big things that Governor Walz has been focused on and pushing for is the state investigative authority working in conjunction with the FBI. I think that's likely one of the concessions that the president made. Just in terms of you're seeing his language in the days since, the 4 days since that incident. So I think that's obviously something that Governor Walz is going to be touting, is the fact that his state BCS, the state investigative body, is going to be able to work hand in glove with the FBI, with DHS in terms of the investigation element. And I think that's probably one of the things touted in that you mentioned, coming out of their conversations and what has been shared.
Okay, a couple of things. Colin, thank you. Grateful to you. Thank you.
Take off that maroon, Colin.
Hotty toddy. A couple things, and back to your questions. First of all, Senator Rubio's hearing foreign relations about to start, and see on Twitter, there's limited seating in the hearing room, and lobbyists want to go, and activists and all that. Apparently, the hearing room, a bunch of interns got there super early, got in line, and they got the whole place. They got almost every seat in the thing. So the other folks aren't able to get in. So good for the interns to take the seats. A quick word from a sponsor. Last one. Ethos.com/Mark gets you a free life insurance quote from the folks at Ethos. It's an online platform that makes getting life insurance easy. No medical exam, just answer a few health questions, and it could take as little as 10 minutes to get up to $3 million in life insurance. If you're the main breadwinner in your family and you don't currently have life insurance, listen to me now. Listen to my voice. Go get life insurance. Go get a free quote from ethos.com. Get this taken care of so you can say to your family, if something happens to me, you'll be able to pay the bills, the mortgage, the rent, college tuition, other major expenses. Go to ethos.com/Mark. Get a free quote right now, as I said, in as little as 10 minutes. Incalculable in terms of the peace of mind you get if you've taken care of that. You've crossed it off your list. And if you haven't done it, do it right now. Again, ethos.com/Mark. Up to $3 million in coverage in as little as 10 minutes. Go to ethos.com/Mark. Thank you for your attention to this matter. All right, guys, those baby videos that we play here sometime? The AI babies. Hogan, you don't like them?
Yes, they're so.
You don't like them?
Right.
They're so trite. Kevin, you like them. I can see. You're smiling.
I think they're cute. Yeah.
Hogan, all right.
They're fine, but they're all the same. It's a baby saying what
I
the
know.
You gotta
I
melt
know.
that cold heart of yours.
And of course, the people on listening on the podcast are like, "What's all the fuss about?" There's a new one. It's adorable. We're not going to play the whole thing. Let's just play like 30 seconds until Hogan makes a sour face, and then we'll go back to questions. Go ahead, play it.
So this weekend, the president posted that this is a cover-up of the fraud in the state of Minnesota. He also posted Minnesota is a cover-up. These both happened after the shooting. So given that these came after the shooting, what is this here? What is
Come on, Hogan. Baby Caroline?
Yes, it's a good question. I've spoken with the president about this at length. What the president is referring to is the fact that you have Governor Walz and, again, the mayor, who have been encouraging these left-wing agitators to come out
Hogan,
and to
Baby
harass,
Caroline,
and to
come
dox,
on.
and to threaten ICE,
Okay.
and to make this conversation about
Baby Noem.
and smear lies
Noem.
about federal law
All right,
enforcement.
take
who,
it
again, are
down. You
just
can go
trying to
watch
do
it
their
online.
jobs in an attempt
come
to
on.
Baby Homan. This is
Baby
great.
Homan. Baby Homan. Hogan, you have the coldest heart. You make the Grinch look like Charo.
Well, first of all, the Grinch didn't hate Christmas; he hated people, and so I understand that. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
fair.
It was a vehicle for him.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Steve,
there's
unmute while Hogan finishes.
There's a joke here about which party really actually does think babies are cute and worth it, but I'll leave that for another time. It's fine. Like, they're fun to watch for a second. I don't.
Okay, fine. Steve, welcome in. Thank you for being part of Two-Way. Tell folks where you are. Love your hat and what's on your mind for Kevin and for Hogan.
Yeah, good morning, gents. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. Thanks for having me.
I wish I was at our place there. We're in Charleston, are you?
I can't see you. Is that Hogan?
No, that's
Kevin. We got a
Kevin.
place in Charleston.
I'll be there.
You did?
Yeah. We're
I
like
just
south
moved.
abroad, right by those tennis courts, right by the Coast Guard base right there.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah.
It's not that fancy.
It's
He's
a nice
big
strip.
row house.
It's a nice strip of land.
Yeah, fancy area. I just moved down here from New York City a couple months ago. So.
Okay. Food's better in Charleston.
And like slightly cheaper.
Yes. Yes.
In his heart, Kevin's telling you to go home, by the way.
Steve, we got to get to your question, but I'll give you two recommendations. Husk is my favorite restaurant, and the sushi at the Piggly Wiggly is to be avoided at all costs.
I can confirm the latter, but not the former.
Okay, go to Husk. All right, what's on your mind, Steve?
So I've listened to I don't know how many hours of commentary on the situation in Minnesota, and no one's really explained the substantive facts of what's going on. So we have had ICE since 2003. Obama deported 2.5 million people. Tom Homan was around. What actual changes have occurred aside from rhetorical? Have we hired a lot more ICE agents? I keep hearing that all of this is a result of poor training on this show and others.
Yeah.
Has training requirements been dropped? Is there a change in standards in detention facilities? What protocol changes have occurred? What tactical changes have occurred? What really, because you said this is such a major issue for national interest and for lives, and I really don't know whether we should be worked up or not. other than the unfortunate events that have happened because of it. But what actually has changed? No one's explained.
You mean in the last year?
Since Trump came in, and what
well, I'll be brief because we're up against the time. But it's a great point and a great question. They've hired more people. They have changed and in some cases reduced the training. And they've been more aggressive about who they're trying to deport by going into blue cities without coordination and trying to aggressively deport people. So they've made changes. Those are all new things. And there's others, but we're short of time. But they have made changes, and they're, as Hogan will be the first to tell you, this is what the president said he was going to do. Nobody should be surprised. Now, Barack Obama deported a lot of people, but they didn't do it quite this way.
And in terms of the border.
Yeah.
It was more at the border.
In terms of detention centers, there are plenty of them. Got to go, Steve. I'm sorry, but come back. We'll talk more about it. I apologize.
Sanctuary
we're up against
cities
the clock.
also changed the thing too.
Yeah. All right.
We're going to move the show to Charleston so Steve can be in the live audience.
Okay. Citizen McCain at noon today. Miranda filling in for Megan, who's enjoying her new baby, and they booked the hell out of the episode. Ben Ferguson and Christine Rosen, two great guests. Join Miranda at noon for that. Mary Margaret Olahan is my guest, White House correspondent for the Daily Wire on two-way tonight. Remember our new time, 5 Eastern time. And a morning meeting tomorrow. Kevin will be back, and Hogan is swapping out with Larry O'Connor. So Kevin and Larry tomorrow, and Hogan couldn't be more grateful to you for spending a couple days with us. I'm on with Michael Smerconish right now, and then at 1:30 Eastern, I'll be on with Clay and Buck, fresh off my interview with them on Next Up, including what's getting a lot of attention on Twitter, which is Buck, as some of you know this already, had never heard of Madden and Summerall, never heard of the pair of Madden and Summerall. So I'm sure that'll be a topic of conversation because Buck is unapologetic. His attitude is, so what? And of course, we all know, so what? So
I just wonder if it's gotten back to Susie.
Well, Susie's daughter. I know Susie's daughter. No, because she was on Twitter about it. Anyway, I'll see you on Smerconish now on Sirius XM. I'll see you on Clay and Buck at 1:30. I'll see you here at 5 o'clock on Two Way. I'll see Kevin and Larry tomorrow at 9 a.m. And Hogan, we'll see you in the cutaways at the White House. Thank you both for being here.
$1,000 Trump check.
Exactly. Thank you all. Have a great day, everybody.
Have a great one.